Hey guys, welcome back to 100 Drops of Apex Legends. If I sound a little different today, it's because I'm feeling a bit under the weather, but fear not, we're still trekking on in our quest to drop every POI in the game 100 times, and track every stat along the way to determine which POIs I perform well at, and which ones I should probably avoid dropping into if I have the option. This episode, looking at the second of two POIs new to World's Edge this season, Stacks. Here's the stats that we'll be tracking across our 100 straight drops into this POI. As per usual, all games will take place in pubs, including a healthy mix of duos, trios, and solo queues,
good try.
to represent the many different ways there are to play the game. And at the end, we'll compare the stats of Stacks to the other POIs we've covered in the series thus far. So without further ado, let's leave no stat unturned and no tip unlearned. This is the POI Breakdown for Stacks. Stacks is one of two new POIs on World's Edge that came with the launch of Season 17, the other being Monument. Stacks resides where Lava City once did, right next to Big Mod in the southwest corner of the map. Its main feature is the multi-level zipline construction building that dominated Fragment West in past seasons. Surrounding said structure is a pretty dense network of catwalks, large buildings, small buildings, and half-constructed buildings. It kind of reminds me of Capital City for anybody who played back in the Season 3 days. Looking at loot, Stacks is absolutely stacked. Get it? Stacks? Stacked? Alright, I'll see myself out. There's plenty of pills, floor loot, verticality, and general space to support multiple teams without the need to 50-50 off drop. Additionally, it's located right next to another great POI in Big Mod, and it's got everyone's favorite construction building. People must love landing here all the time, right? No, not really actually. Stacks at the end of the day is just another really good edge POI, like Skyhook or Elysium. If it's the first off the dropship, you're probably going to have a solid multi-team contest. But if it's any further, you're probably going to have it all to yourself. Playing contests at Stacks are pretty simple. First, check and see if it's a multi-team contest. If it's not, and it's just you and one other team, grab a gun and hunt. You want to be the first to hit an angle on somebody and apply pressure, dictating the fight on your terms. If there are multiple squads, you want to do the opposite. Land, take your time, loot up, and wait for the action to start before swooping in to steal a kill or clean up on an unsuspecting enemy. As for where to drop to accomplish this, it's actually not that big a deal at this POI. There's so much loot and so many structures that break line of sight that you can just land just about anywhere and find yourself a couple solid guns and maybe a blue armor to fight very comfortably with. The central construction building will have the most to offer, of course, but none of the other buildings are really hurting in terms of loot either. Good legends to pick for dropping Stacks are vertical movement legends like Horizon and Valk, who are so good at using their kits to win fights in and around construction building. Valk can use her jetpack to quickly move from floor to floor, and Horizon can duck out the side and pop her Q, allowing for a quick escape from fire to heal up. Watson is another solid choice, as she has probably the best Q of all the controller legends for locking down sections of the POI to allow her resets or general defensive plays. Finally, Wraith gets an honorable mention here, as it would be heresy for me not to mention her reputation as the ultimate zipline building skirmisher. My recommended rotation for kills is Lava Siphon, which will likely have at least one team, and then up to Frag and Monument through either of these two choke points. And sometimes there's some potential KP for you to scoop up at Harvester on the way as well, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. I also highly recommend sending at least one member of your team over to Big Mod if you have the POI to yourself as well. With both POIs housing crafters, you should have no problem buying the gold guns off the walls over there for 100 mats each. Also, a bonus tip for you as well. It's probably well known, but the quick reload perk on Rampart guns stacks with the reload buff of Ballistic's Ultimate. And with both buffs active, this is what an R99 reload looks like.
Oh, you were not talking to me.
Bro, look at this, Brian.
But that's just about everything you need to know about Stacks. Let's get into the 100 drops themselves, where I'll be going over key tips, tricks, and spots to ensure you can win the contest every time and maximize your kills and wins when you drop at this POI.
Let's go!
Woo! But before we get to that, I want to let you know that I am on a mission to make Apex content great again. It seems like all you see these days is violence in movies and sex on TV, and also generic cookie-cutter Apex Legends content. So if you want to help me achieve my goal of raising the bar for what good Apex content is, and creating more cool shit like this of course, do me a favor and hit that like button down below for me, and subscribe if you haven't already, because honestly it really does make a night and day difference in how the video performs in the algorithm, and thus how many people actually get to see this video that I've been really working on for the past month. You honestly have no idea how much your little mouse click means to me. If you made it this far, just know that I appreciate you, and without further ado, let's get into the drops and see how they all went down.
Right away.
Here's something I noticed pretty early on in my 100 drops. While Stacks may be a ghost town if it's not first off the dropship, Big Maud actually sees a team or two dropping over there a little more frequently. To take advantage of this, whenever I saw a team indeed landing Big Maud, my squad would drop, grab 2 guns, and book it over there as fast as possible to clean them up, most of the time for free, as they would either be in the middle of looting or fighting their contest. This ensures you have a couple early kills, access to the rampart guns, and as much time as you need to loot the rest of the surrounding area. Here's a good example of it on drop number 57.
I can't take your cue.
Got one. Nice.
In the case that you want to rotate to Lava Siphon extra quickly, you can place an evac tower on the roof of any of the buildings, and you'll clear the mountain between the 2 POIs. Now, Stacks being at Edge POI on World's Edge where Fragment still exists means that some games you can essentially get a free ticket to the endgame if you play passively. Here the boys and I are just shooting the shit in the Discord call since we hadn't gamed with each other in a while, and by the time we run into another squad, it's the final 4.
Bro, that fucking bow check needs to go, bro.
Bye bye.
On top. Knock one. Crack, bang.
Knocked. I'm batting. On me.
Where's the last one?
She cute. She's cute out. This way.
Alright,
Cracked. Nice, good shot.
Drop 50 is a perfect example of my suggested high kill rotation from Stacks. Here's how my brother and I utilize it to drop a 14 kill dub in duo queue trios.
death box right here.
Knocked one. Knocked another one. Oh, he's one. Got him. Oh my god. I'm on low ground.
Where is he though?
I'm just on low ground. He's in there. He's in here.
Oh, he's weak. Got him. I'm going to the top. On the top. 100. Knocked.
Grab that swap.
There's a heavy on his box.
She's 130.
Nice.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
right
what
here.
do you need
He's right
over
here.
Bro, I'm hard running up on this kid. Fuck this kid.
One clip. I'm backing up. Alright.
I'm going up.
Me too. I knocked him.
Nice! Right here. I think it's the last one. Two though, it's two. I'm coming with you. I'm with you.
Lobo 150. Nice. Last one. Nice.
Let's go!
Woo!
Good shit.
Oh, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back at it again. Stats nerds, data enthusiasts rejoice. It's time for the stat breakdown. First of all, of course, we're always going to look at our seasonal stats because that's what we compare our stats from our 100 drops to
to see if the POI is good or not, or if I performed the POI well or not. A little bit has changed since last time, since we did quite a few drops in between last episode and this. Total games played is now 675. Total wins is now 44, giving us a 6.52% win rate. My average damage per game is now 572.3, and my average kills per game is about 1.80. In fact, I believe it is on the dot 1.80. And as always, the difference between kill-death ratio and kills per game is kill-death ratio is going to factor in the fact that you do not die in games that you win, or in some games you may die twice if you are respawned. So we compare on this series to kills per game and not KD ratio, but you can very easily determine your kills per game by taking dividing your total kills by your total games. But that is what we're looking at in terms of seasonal stats currently. So let's see what happened at Stacks and compare that to the seasonal averages. And looking at Stacks, going into this POI, I knew that it was going to be a quieter drop, and so I was kind of curious how the damage and kills averages would stack up. I assumed that the win percent would be a little higher, just because we'd probably be encountering fewer fights and thus would have fewer chances to die before we got to the end game. But damage per game and kills per game were actually above average as well. Average damage per game at Stacks was about 579 compared to 572 on the seasonal average. So very, very, very minimal improvement, but improvement nonetheless. And then kills per game, like I said, seasonal average was 1.8 on the dot. And at Stacks, we had 1.87. So once again, marginal improvement, but ever so slightly better than my seasonal average. And then win rate, like I was just talking about, I expected this to be higher. We almost got into the double digits on win percentage, which would have been a first for the series. But we're sitting at a nice, solid 9% win rate, dropping at Stacks versus a 6.52% win rate on my seasonal average. So once again, this is our second POI after Hammond Labs, where all three stats are above my seasonal average, which means we have another fantastic POI that we're looking at here. And now here's the game mode breakdown. We went a little more in depth than last episode. We are now taking into consideration how big of a party I'm queuing into these modes with. So as you can see, I queued into duos mode with a 2-stack 49.4% of the time. I solo queued in the trios mode 29.4% of the time. I duo queued in the trios mode, so me and a friend queued into trios with a random 17.6% of the time. And then me and my buddy duo v squads, no filled, we did that 3.5% of the time. So a little bit more of an in-depth stat breakdown on what the game modes are looking at. And then something new that I wanted to look at was the contest rate. The percentage of the time that I landed at the POI and there was at least one other team sharing it with me that we would have to battle it out with. And as you can see, Stacks is by far the quietest POI that we've looked at so far. Monument, of course, leads the pack with a 100% contest rate. No big surprise there. Estates, another hot drop. Hammond Labs, another hot drop up there in the high 80s. And then Relic, Relic is more of a mid POI in terms of intensity or contest rate, but we were still contested about 81% of the time, which is significantly higher than the 33% that we saw at Stacks. And like I said, that's just with it being an edge POI on World's Edge, right? World's Edge is always going to see a much lower contest rate when you're looking at any edge POIs versus any of the middle POIs. So like think Monument, think Lava Siphon, think Fragment. All of those are going to have very, very, very high contest rates because the majority of the lobby drops there, at least in pubs. And all of the rest of the edge POIs are going to have much, much, much quieter action off drop. So that is why you're going to see probably some of the lowest contest rates when we're looking at edge POIs on World's Edge versus, the other maps as well. Just because of that massive draw of that central POI of Monument and Fragment. That being said, let's look at how Stacks stacked. Get it? I already made that joke. Oh well, we'll edit it out. Yeah, first place is still Hammond Labs. Pretty significant increase on all three stats there for Hammond Labs. Stacks, again, pretty minimal increase on kills per game and damage per game, but win rate was significantly higher. It was the highest that we've seen on the series thus far. Relic, pretty middle POI. Estates, pretty middle POI. And then Monument, we don't talk about it, as always. So that is the stat breakdown. I decided not to break down further the game mode stats like I did in previous videos. And that's just because I feel like we kind of already know what the answer to that question is going to be, did I perform better in solo queue versus 3-stack? Obviously, I'm going to perform better in a 3-stack, and I'm performing better in duos versus trios. We have now, I think, enough data to determine that I typically perform better in the trios than the duos mode. There's going to be outliers within data analysis, and I think that Hammond Labs, where duos was better than trios, was an outlier. But, you know, with 90% certainty, I think we can say that most of the time, trios is going to be better than duos, and 3-stack is going to be better than solo queue. So, you know, I'm not going to take the time to go into that if we already know the answer. I would much rather look at data that might suggest trends that might not be so immediately obvious, like contest rate, and seeing how contest rate compares to how many games I win, how much damage I do, and then, you know, trying to level that out such that you can figure out which POI you want to drop at if you're trying to grind wins, or excuse me, if you're trying to grind wins or trying to grind kills. That's what I was trying to say. Goodness gracious. As for why I think I did so well at stacks, well, I already said it a little bit earlier. The win rate is higher simply because it's a quieter drop, and thus you're going to be getting in less skirmishes, which means you have less chances of being sent back to the lobby before the end game. Kills per game and damage per game, then, you would think would be lower as a result if you're getting in less skirmishes, right? But we were contested 1/3 of the drops, literally 33%, 1/3. And also you have to take into consideration the fact that I was doing the big mod strat, right? Where somebody landed at big mod right next door, then I wanted to go over there, I wanted to push them, I wanted to engage them. I wanted to, you know, potentially scoop up some early KP. So even though that doesn't count as a contest, that does mean that we were still getting into skirmishes off drop a little more frequently than that 33% of the time might suggest. So we were still getting in fights throughout like the games. We weren't playing passive, we weren't playing for the win, we weren't playing like it's ranked. But, you know, the potential for pop-off games is definitely much lower than if you were dropping a hot drop, simply because you're not going to have that early game skirmish as often as you would if you were dropping somewhere like Lava Siphon or Fragment. But that is everything that I really have to say about stacks and what happened over my 100 drops there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate you. Enjoy making these. If you enjoy watching them, drop a like, drop a comment, tell me what POI you want to see next. Yeah, that's it for me. Hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. Adios.